Hello everyone, this is the BSE-Sofia earnings call for the first half of 2017. We are sorry for the short delay at the beginning. It was due to technical reasons. My name is Ivo Stankov and I shall briefly present to you a short market overview and the report of the exchange for the first half of 2017. And afterwards, Ivan Takev, the CEO of the exchange, shall present to you the progress of our ongoing projects and our plans for the future. I want to remind you that there is a number on each slide and you can ask questions during the presentation mentioning the slide number they refer to. In the end, we shall address your questions and we shall answer each question. You may ask questions through the chat form. When you press the chat button, there is a second option, questions and answers, and this is the way to send us your questions. So moving on to the presentation. The first half of 2017 was a period of overall growth for numbers. At the end of 2016, the market capitalization grew by 15.7%, moving over the 10 billion BGN threshold at the end of the first quarter, and then over the 11 billion value at the end of June. All the indices increased their value too. The market turnover dropped by 17% compared to the second half of 2016, but it was higher than the turnover in both the second half of 2015 and the first half of 2016. Thanks to the several ongoing projects related to the capital markets and their visible progress, the development of a long-term strategy for capital markets and its implementation by the members of the Capital Market Development Council, the joint efforts for promoting the market by the government, the FSC, BSE-Sofia, the Central Depository and the rest of the stakeholders, the market activity was high and the growth in the capitalization and turnover compared to the first half of 2016 showed increasing interest in the capital markets. The market capitalization of BSE-Sofia reached 11.2 billion BGN at the end of the second half of 2017 compared to the 9.68 billion BGN at the end of 2016, which is an increase of 15.7%. The market capitalization of all segments of the main BSE market increased. The largest relative increase was on the premium equity segment by 33.14% or 570 million BGN, followed by a 15% or 858 million BGN growth on the standard equity segment capitalization, and 9.66% or 56 million BGN increase in the rate segment of the main BSE market. Capitalization growth of the two segments of the alternative market was negligible. The values of all indices of BSE-Sofia increased during the first half of 2017. The movement of the value of all indices was unidirectional and their curves had similar shapes. Only the BG rate value curves differs due to the type of companies comprising this index. The biggest percentage increase was in the value of BGBX40, which grew by over 20% or 22.92 points, followed by Sofix, which grew by 19.96% or 117.03 points. The BGTR30 increasing by almost 17% or 76.28 points. Only the BG rate grew by less than 10%, 5.24% increase or 5.67 points increase. The turnover on the regulated market of financial instruments in the first half of 2017 dropped by nearly 20%, reaching 219 million BGN. For comparison, in the second half of 2016, it amounted to 275 million BGN. The decrease is due to dropping equity turnover, which decreased by 17%, decrease in rates turnover by 3%, and bonds turnover dropped by 33%. The turnover in the other financial instruments group also decreased, but in absolute figures it was insignificant. Moving on to the financial standing of BSE-Sofia. With regards to sales revenue of the exchange, there was an increase by 21.41% where compared to the corresponding period of 2016. mainly due to the increase in turnover on the exchange. Trading fees grew by 61%, information services fees increased by 49%, penalties paid by the exchange members, registration fees, and other operating revenue also increased. Finance revenue decreased from 102,000 BGN to 101,000 BGN as a result of a decrease in interest income from deposits and current accounts with banks. The other revenue items decreased insignificantly. The comparison between the structure of revenue in the first half of 2016 and the first half of 2017 shows that the share of each item remains relatively stable over time, keeping in mind that the notes that we made on the previous slide. Moving on to cost, the main cost items decreased by 8.77% where compared to the first half of 2016. Higher services expenses dropped by 118,000 BGN due to a drop in consulting and other services by 27,000 BGN, decrease in licensing fees by 45,000 BGN, and decrease of membership fees by 28,000 BGN. Personnel costs grew by 2.55%, and the change in the other cost items was insignificant. There were no finance costs during both periods. The comparison between the structure of cost in the first half of 2016 and the first half of 2017 illustrates a stable structure, showing the said slight decrease in higher services and the increase in personnel costs. At the end of the first half of 2017, the net financial result achieved by BSE-Sofia was negative to the amount of 22,000 BGN, which was mainly due to the low operating revenue, increase in personnel cost and other operating expenditure, besides the drop in hired services expenses. As of June 30th, 2016, the operating loss of BSE-Sofia was 379,000 BGN. And in the current period, it dropped to a negative value of 123,000 BGN. The operating loss is mainly due to the low revenue. The total comprehensive income for the year changed from a negative value of 268,000 at June 30th, 2016 to a positive value of 1,000 BGN at the end of the reported period. As at 30th of June 2017, the net result of BSE-Sofia is a loss of 0.003 BGN per share. The total assets of Bulgarian Stock Exchange Sofia at the end of the first half of 2017 were 27,000 BGN, or 0.25% higher than the value at the end of 2016. There were no major changes in the company's assets. Current assets increased by 1.51%, or 43,000 BGN, while the non-current assets decreased by 16,000 BGN, or 0.2%. There was a decrease in the trade receivables item by 93,000 BGN, while cash and cash equivalents grew by 185,000. As of June 30th, 2017, the company had no term deposits with banks. Other receivables and prepaid expenses reflects the receivables on a session contract on a deposit with a bank placed under special supervision, which as at June 30th, 2017 is shown as a short-term receivable. Regarding liabilities, the value of retained loss at the end of 2016 was 44,000 BGN, while its value at the end of the first half of 2017 amounted to 41,000 BGN. According to a decision adopted at the general meeting of shareholders of BSE-Sofia held on April 7, 2017, the net profit for 2016 amounted to 63,000 BGN, was distributed equally between reserve and dividend to the company shareholders. The loss accumulated at the end of the first half of 2017 is due to operational loss from the current period. Current liabilities grew by 10.19%. The increase was due to a rise in payables to suppliers and other creditors by 18%, which increased due to prepaid information services fees paid in full according to the rules and regulations of the exchange in the first quarter, but deferred for the whole year. Tax payables shrunk by 43% or 20,000 BGN. The shareholder structure remains stable over time. The majority shareholder is the Ministry of Finance, owning a share of a little over 50%. The number of shares held by other shareholder groups is almost unchanged compared to the previous quarters. There is a slight increase in the number of natural persons holding shares of BSE-Sofia from 9.96% in the third quarter of 2016 to 12.32% at the end of the first half of 2017. The trading in BSE-Sofia own shares, our ticker is BSO, was active during the first half of 2017. The average price was 2.954 BGM per share. The price at the end of the year half increased by 0.129 BGM per share, or 4.49%, from 2.87 BGM closing price on December 30th to 2.99 BGM per share on June the 30th. The minimum price per share was BGN 270 and the maximum was 330 per share. A total of 268,678 shares were transferred in 423 trades. The total turnover was 784,874 BGN, which in comparison to the numbers during the second half of 2016 marked a decrease in the turnover by 16%, volume dropped by 11%, and an increase in the number of trades by 1.2%. Shares were traded in 93 out of 123 sessions during the reported period. This table illustrates a quick summary of the data I just quoted. I shall now let Ivan Takev present to you the development of our ongoing projects and our future plans. Ivan?
Thank you, Ivo. Before we move to our projects, those that we've been working on for more than a year, let me remind you that in case you have questions, please make sure that you type those questions in the chat section. We'll start with our international markets. As announced, this market will allow our customers to trade in international equities and exchange-traded funds listed on other exchanges. It is structured as a two-stage project. The first part, as we already explained, is the regulated market for instruments with EU-compliant prospectuses. Those are instruments that have a valid prospectus and are listed on a European stock exchange. The second part is actually an MTF for all other instruments, those that don't have a valid prospectus or are listed outside Europe. The regulated market rulebook that we prepared and the settlement link that was required were approved by our securities regulator in April 2007 and July 2007. Basically, these were the two prerequisites to launch the market, at least its first stage. On top of that, the MTF rulebook was filed with the FSC in July, and we are awaiting the first round of comments of our regulator in the forthcoming days. In the meantime, we drew up a short list of companies with the valid EU prospectuses and will finalize the list of instruments that will be available for trading on the regulated market. In the meantime, the securities law in Bulgaria was amended, and currently no Bulgarian translation is required the resume of the prospectus any longer, which was not the case before the law was changed. We also detailed out our settlement routines with CBL, and some testing settlement messages will be exchanged between the Central Securities Depository of Bulgaria and the settlement agent of the market maker. That market maker already applied for membership at BSE, but its EU passport is still not recognized in Bulgaria. The process is not finalized yet. So once this happens, the Bulgarian Stock Exchange will accept the market maker as a member. The Xitra simulation environment is now open for testing for both the market maker and our members as well. Until it should be in line with the Xitra simulation calendar, and all members will have to comply with this as well. On top of that, once we announce the go-live date, we'll carry out at least one on-site training for members and everyone who is willing to participate, of course, and a series of virtual trainings for the audience. The next project that we are currently working on is the government bond market. Our rulebook was approved by the regulator in early July. We finalized our agreements with the Central Bank and the Bulgarian Ministry of Finance, which were a prerequisite for launching that market. And we agreed on the format of the trade report that will be exchanged by BSE and the Central Bank on a daily basis, with all transactions that are supposed to be settled by the Central Bank. We are currently testing the technical connectivity between the stock exchange and the Central Bank. And one of the key steps here is actually the application for membership of the Bulgarian Central Securities Depository at the Securities Depository for Government Bonds at the Bulgarian Central Bank. We expect to launch in September 2017, as with the Bulgarian International Project, we'll carry out on-site and virtual trainings for our members and the public. A quick recap about what's going on with CE-Link. Currently, we have 5 exchanges connected to the platform. These are the Bulgarian Stock Exchange, the Macedonian, the Zagreb Stock Exchange. These are the founding members, and Ljubljana and Belgrade Stock Exchange as well. We have 3 more approved members. These are the Greek ATEX Exchange, Banja Luka Stock Exchange, and Sarajevo Stock Exchange as well. And 2 of them, namely ATEX and Banja Luka, are actually testing their technical connections to the platform. As of today, we have 23 interbroker agreements, 8 originating brokers and 7 executing brokers from Bulgaria are assigned to those interbroker agreements. We have just one fixed compatible broker. It is from Croatia. No other fixed compatible members from any of the remaining countries, but some of them are working on their fixed compatibility. In Q1 2017, we agreed with a leading international bank to provide settlement services with regards to CE-Link, thus facilitating settlement, standing in between as a settlement agent for each 2 markets that are part of the platform. In the next months, we will sign a memorandum of understanding with that bank, and the bank will also sign service level agreements with the Central Securities Depository as a second step. However, the implementation of this settlement link is actually postponed after the successful implementation of the Central Securities Depository regulation of the EU domiciled CSDs, as they are supposed to file for obtaining a license from their national regulators by the end of September. In the meantime, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development launched a post-trading integration project and selected a consultant to come up with a proposal how to better integrate the post-trading activities in the region, given the specifics of each of the national depositories. So the currently consultants are familiarizing themselves with our specifics, and they will draw up a list of questions in order to obtain better understanding of our markets. The key findings will be presented by the consultant as a first step in a joint workshop in September 2017. We'll be able to follow up with more details about that EBRD initiative at the next earnings call. Aside from what we have just said, we've been also working on our SME-oriented markets. With regards to that, there are a few major developments that occurred in the second quarter of 2017. The first was that the securities draft amendments were prepared and the securities law was amended in 2017 before the summer break of the parliament. So these amendments will go live immediately, and they will allow us to set up a market where no prospectus is required for all offerings of 1 million euro or less, which is actually one of the main impediments before, as the law provided for offerings of just 100,000 euro on an annual basis. It's pretty clear that no company will raise 100,000 euro via the capital markets. But now this threshold has been lifted to 1 million euro, so it's much more realistic in terms of having more small-sized companies on the capital markets. Of course, that market will not be regulated. It will be structured under the license that we plan to obtain for the MTF. Currently, as I explained, our application is pending FSC approval. The requirements for authorized advisors that are one of the prerequisites for such markets are to be detailed. We have focused our efforts on other projects, but once we start the Bulgarian international market and the government securities market, we will be able to focus on this one, and we'll come up with a list of requirements for the authorized advisors to be met when listing small-sized companies on our market. And in the MiFID II environment, we'll discuss setting up an SME growth market, which allows for slightly larger offerings from 5 to 25 million euro per year. Having such a market is not a mandatory thing, but of course we will discuss this as a potential option. This was actually your last slide. We don't have any questions at the moment, but we'll wait for a couple of minutes, and in case you have such, please make sure that you ask them now.
Since there are no questions asked through our questions and answers form, we're going to wrap up with the presentation. You can still ask any kind of questions regarding the report of the stock exchange or the other information that we just presented on our email address through our website, or you can contact us in any other way convenient. That was all. Thank you very much for being with us, and have a great day, everyone.